For any commercial lender, there's one tool that separates a good decision from a bad one. It's the key that lets you see past a company's reported profits and really uncover the true story of its health. Today on The Explainer, we are diving deep into cash flow. So let me start with a question that might sound, well, a little counterintuitive. Can a company that's reporting record profits still run out of money and actually fail? The answer is a surprising, and for a lender, a very important yes. And today, we're going to find out exactly why.
You see, the whole answer lies in this huge difference between profit and cash. Profit? That's really an accounting idea, right? It gets recorded when a sale is made, not when the cash actually lands in the bank account. But cash? Cash is the real-world fuel. It's what a business needs to pay its bills, its employees, and, most importantly for you, to repay its loans.
And that right there is why just looking at a company's profit is one of the biggest risks a lender can take. To truly get if a borrower can pay you back, you've got to look deeper. And cash flow analysis, that's the tool that gets you there. It's really that simple. Profitability on paper does not, I repeat, does not guarantee there's cash in the bank to service debt. They're two totally different things. And, as a lender, mixing them up can be a very, very costly mistake. So how do we get to that real story? Well, we use the statement of cash flows. This statement basically deconstructs everything a company does into 3 core areas. And each one tells a part of the story about how that business is generating and using its cash. And here they are. First, you have cash from operations, which is all about the main day-to-day business. Then there is cash from investing. Think buying and selling big, long-term assets. And finally, cash from financing, which covers what's happening with owners and lenders. Put them all together, and you get the complete picture. All right, let's dig in. The most crucial, the most important section for any lender is cash from operations. This number, this is the one that tells you the true health of the core business. It answers the fundamental question, can this company make cash just by doing what it's supposed to do? So to find this number, we use what's called the indirect method. We actually start with net income, the profit number from the P&L statement. But we know that's not the real cash number. So we have to make a whole series of adjustments to strip out all that accounting stuff and get down to the actual cash. Okay, the first and most common adjustment is adding back depreciation. Now, depreciation is an expense on the income statement, so it lowers profit. But think about it. Did the company actually write a check for depreciation? No. No cash actually left the building, so we add that number right back to net income. Now, this next one, this highlights a critical paradox for lenders. When accounts receivable goes up, it means the company is making more sales on credit. That looks awesome for profit, right? But it's actually a use of cash because the company hasn't collected that money. I mean, look at this. In one real-world example, a company's accounts receivable grew by over $500,000. Now, while that made their sales figures look great, it meant that $515,000 of cash was tied up. It was earned, but it wasn't in the bank. That is a huge negative adjustment we have to make. And this is the gap that you as a lender have to pay super close attention to. It's the difference between the sales they've reported and the actual cash they have on hand. Your job is to figure out just how big that gap really is. Okay, now let's look at the flip side. When accounts payable goes up, it means the company is taking longer to pay its own bills to its suppliers. In this is a source of cash. The company is basically holding on to its money for a little bit longer. So looking at that same case, the company increased its accounts payable by over $400,000. By slowing down payments to its suppliers, it basically gave itself a short-term interest-free loan to fund its operations. So this becomes a positive adjustment to net income. Here's a little cheat sheet to kind of pull it all together. See? An increase in an asset like accounts receivable or inventory is a use of cash, so you subtract it. But an increase in a liability like accounts payable is a source of cash, so you add it back. This table, this is your key for the most common adjustments. Okay, now let's build out the rest of the story. Once we have our number for cash from operations,
The next two sections, investing and financing, show us what the company did with that cash, or maybe how it plugged the gap if operations were bleeding cash.
Investing activities. These tell us about the company's long-term vision. Is it spending cash on new equipment or buildings to fuel growth down the road? That's a cash outflow, sure. But it's often a really positive sign that management is planning for the future. And finally, financing activities. This section details the company's relationship with you, its lenders, and its owners. Is it taking on new debt? That's a cash inflow. Is it paying down old loans or paying out dividends to shareholders? Those are cash outflows.
So now that we have all three pieces of the puzzle, we can finally put them together. And remember, this isn't just about crunching numbers. It's about reading the story they tell so you can make a really sound credit decision.
This chart here shows a classic pattern for a healthy, growing company. Notice that positive cash from operations, that tells us the core business is strong. Then, the negative cash from investing shows it's putting money back in to grow. And the positive cash from financing means it's borrowing to help fund that expansion. This is the story you really want to see.
So, as a lender, here's your checklist. The signs of strength are a consistent, positive cash flow from operations that can easily cover investments and debt payments. The big, flashing red warning signs, negative cash from operations, or seeing a company that has to keep borrowing or selling off its assets just to pay the daily bills.
At the end of the day, it all comes down to this one idea. Forget the reported profit for just a second. The cash flow statement is the ultimate real-world test of whether a borrower can generate the cold, hard cash required to repay your loan.
So the next time you look at a set of financials, don't just stop at the income statement. Dig into the cash flow, make those adjustments, and then ask yourself this one question. Because when you can answer it, you're not just a lender anymore. You're an analyst who understands the real story behind the business.